Okay, on the essence of time, if it's all right, we're going to go ahead and start the program. You folks feel comfortable. It's a church event. Just kind of mingle and move around and go back. Be sure to get some more cupcakes and whatever else you need. But we're going to go ahead and start the program. We don't want to keep you folks here too late tonight. I'm Joe Heinrich. For those of you who don't know me, I'm currently president of the First Lutheran Church Council. And on behalf of the council, we welcome you all to this great celebration tonight. I think as you look at the program, it's kind of like a potluck supper at one of our church events. There's quite a selection of things. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. We've got some great speakers, some recognition we're going to do, history lesson along the way. I think it's going to be a fun evening, and we'll try to keep it moving along. 1925. Boy, 100 years ago, isn't that something? The population of Maquoketa was 3,595. I think today it's about 6,000. Nellie Taylor Ross was the first female governor in the United States that year. Mount Rushmore was being dedicated that year. And the Jazz Age was in full bloom at that point. And so was a little church in Maquoketa, Iowa, who started off this day in 1925, 100 years ago. And we can be proud of its heritage, we can be proud of its past, and we look forward to developing into the next generation and the future of what excitement has to come for this church and the members in it. With that, I would like to welcome Cindy Moore-Fear to come up to the front. Give you a little background on her. She was originally Moore. She married Al several years, we'll just say a few years ago, if that's all right. So, and it is an in-law, so if you see us bumping each other a little bit, there's a family thing here. But come on up, we'll turn it over to you, and we just really appreciate all she has done as chair of this committee this year.
I really enjoy seeing everybody here, the ones that came from afar and the ones came from locally. We're pleased to see all of you.
There you go. I told you it was temperamental.
Okay. There you go. Okay, just a couple I'll just hold it.
I'll just go like this.
Okay.
We're going to make this work.
Just a couple reminders. I want everybody to remember tomorrow's church service is at the church at 9 o'clock. Everybody is welcome. We're going to be drawing for that quilt at the end of this evening. So if you still want to purchase a raffle ticket, go ahead. We've also got door prizes to give away, so make sure you get your name in there. Welcome to the 100th anniversary of First Lutheran Church. Just before I continue, I would like to ask everyone to either raise their hand or stand that served on an anniversary committee, made phone calls, mailed letters, helped in decorating, or worked in the office, because poor Becky has worked a lot of extra hours. So if we could just give all of those workers a hand. And I would like to give Geronimo's a hand for the good meal that they served us this evening. There have been many changes in the home of First Lutheran Church. 100 years ago, you saw women in church wearing dresses and a hat, and the men in three-piece suits and a tie. That was seen even when I was growing up in this church. There have been additions and remodeling done since the last time some of you have been back home. But our faith and our beliefs have not changed over the past 100 years. We continue to come together to share the word, teach the word, and welcome anyone who joins us. Our purpose has not changed. Our motto for this anniversary is from 2 Peter chapter 3. grow in grace in the knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We are celebrating those founding fathers who were here before us, and those of you who are here tonight that were taught the word and promise of Christ. We will continue to be disciples of Christ and spread his word and everlasting life. Our doors will continue to be open and welcoming. Thank you for sharing this special time with us. God bless everyone, and please visit again. Thank you.
You know, the farmer in me is thinking, all we need is a sandbag down here and we're in good shape. But I think we're out of luck on that. I'm now going to welcome Pastor Harrison up to the podium for a few words.
One of the ways this congregation was blessed during our first century of mission and ministry was with the partnership of Dr. John A. and Doc and Annalie Broman family for more than 5 decades. Doc and Nani were here from the time he started practicing medicine in 1948 on, a family with 8 children that grew up in this congregation and community. And as so many of us know, a very musical family. We're grateful that Jack, Beth, Ruth, and Faith are with us this weekend and shared in the music festival leadership, and we're blessed to hear from all of the Broman family singers a few times by recorded music throughout this program this evening, including Steve, Barry, and Hope, who are not able to be with us. First, with our opening prayer, this musical offering, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive our debts as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom and the power and the glory are yours forever.
Wasn't that just wonderful? Thank you so much to the Broman singers for doing all that you have done, not just this wonderful weekend, but all throughout the years. For those of us who have been here for a while, the Bromans have been an institution here, especially in the music industry and part of our membership, and we thank you for what you've done. Okay, our first great speaker of the night. I'm going to ask Pastor Mike to start working up this way as I start talking about this. I think all of us that have been here for a while know that I just heard it earlier today. Hello, and that was Pastor Harold Kumpf, and he was an institution here for over 30 years. He was designated as a pastor emeritus several years ago, and he was one that was just filled with excitement and just always made sure everybody knew he was there, and was a great servant of the Lord over the years. They were here. Eleanor, better known as Cookie, had a great impact in the congregation community over the years. They had their 3 children were Barb Moore, Mike, and Caroline Hulston. We just were very blessed for those years that we had him here. We're grateful for Dr. Mike to come tonight. He's retired from Valparaiso University. He is a professor, and he is the son of Harold and Cookie Kump. And we very much appreciate his taking the time tonight. Thank you.
My dad prided himself in never needing a written script for his sermons, so I'm afraid he might be frowning as he looks down and sees his son here with a printed text, but bear with me. Many of you here certainly don't remember me, but some of you older folks probably do. To those old and young, I must say it is unquestionably an honor and privilege to represent the Kump family, and especially my two sisters, Barbara and Carolyn, commonly known as Cookie, at this occasion, the 100th anniversary of First Lutheran Church, Maquoketa, Iowa. A church which still serves as a major part of the fabric of my life and the crest of my spiritual being. I'm here this evening as a speaker because my longtime and best friend, Joe Bullock, who was a member of the church's anniversary planning committee, extended me the invitation. That occurred last summer when Linda and I were sitting in the Bullocks' front yard, downwind from Joe, who was fighting a long and courageous battle with cancer, a battle which he later unfortunately lost. At the time, I didn't think it would be possible for me to speak tonight, since it looked like I would be out of the country. That has not happened, and here I am. I'm sure Joe is happy about that. Before I go on, I must beg your pardon for the few references that I'll be making in this address to the world of ancient Rome. You can blame my father for this, since he started me on my career as a classicist when he made me take Latin my freshman year at Maquoketa High School. Latin was a language that I definitely didn't want to study. But as my fellow student Karen Hansen can attest, we had an outstanding Latin teacher, Ronald Wilging, who taught us well and excited in us an appreciation for Rome's countless, invaluable, and enduring contributions to the world we Americans have experienced over our long history. The ancient Romans worshipped many gods, among whom was Janus, the god who gives us the name for January. The bust of this god showed two faces, one looking backward and one looking forward. The Romans believed that at the end of a year and the beginning of a new one, it was necessary first of all to look backwards on what had transpired to bring them to the present point. And that is what First Lutheran has been doing this past year, looking backwards as it celebrates its centennial, a word that comes from Latin, meaning 100 years. And now, since I'm representing the Kump family, I'll focus my remarks first on my dad, and I'll first of all focus on the man he was, the person he was, and then secondly on his 33 years of ministry, which comprise 1/3 of the history of First Lutheran, the 100-year history of First Lutheran. The person he was. As some of you might know, my dad certainly came from a ministerial pedigree. In the latter half of the 19th century, his grandfather Kump came with his wife from Berfelden, Germany, to the United States as a Lutheran missionary. Here they had 7 children, 5 sons who became Lutheran pastors, and 2 daughters who married Lutheran pastors. That was my grandfather's generation. My granddad had 1 son, my father, who became a Lutheran minister, as did a number of his cousins. That's a lot of pastors in one family. Although definitely a product of a churchy background, my father, I must say, was not overly religious. Rather, he was a man who possessed the love and joy of living the life that God had given him. In fact, if there is one word that I associate with my dad, it is the word love, the greatest of all virtues, as St. Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 13:13. Faith, hope, and love abideth, these 3, but the greatest of these is love. First of all, without a question, my dad passionately loved his wife and children, and how with a sparkle in his eye he loved to tell his family stories, many of which we heard time and time again, and which seemed to get embellished with every telling. Let me share a few. He would joyfully tell us about the many naughty shenanigans he and his boyhood friends did in Luena, Iowa, for which he received severe whippings from his father. Even after 70 or so years, he would still happily laugh at the pranks he and his buddies did. He also loved to tell of the Lowena High School basketball games in which he played, especially the one in which Lowena lost to Elkader 16-18. Yes, that's right, 16-18. That sounds like a boring game to me, but not to my dad. So too, he would fondly tell stories about his boyhood years of pheasant hunting and fishing with his father and maternal grandfather. It was in fishing, my dad said, that he felt a tie, a spiritual tie, to the fishermen who were some of Jesus' first disciples. And although he waited until I myself was out of college, he then loved to tell of the time in which he was almost expelled from Luther College for severe misbehavior. Yes, my dad had lots of spunk and a real love of life. My dad also loved to tell of stories of working on a farm as a hired hand when field work was done with horses for 10 summers, high school through seminary, for $45 a season, and there was never a raise over those 10 years. Sounds pretty rough to me, but my dad loved his work then and always had a real love and appreciation for the world of Iowa farmers. Let me interrupt my comments on my dad's love of storytelling, and he did love to tell stories, and tell you a few stories from a son's perspective about him. In 1970, when I was serving in the Army at the NATO military headquarters in Belgium, my dad, mom, and Cookie came over to Europe for the first time. I took some leave time, and one of the first places we visited was Beerfelden, Germany, the small town from where my dad's grandfather had come so many years ago. As we drove into town, we stopped at a local bar. My dad and I went in, and my dad, who had been raised in the German language, asked everyone there, and there were many drinking a morning beer, for their attention. The crowd of beer drinkers was definitely surprised. My dad then explained that his name was Kumpf, and wondered if that name was still known by any locals. Everyone in the bar started to laugh. My dad, embarrassed, thought maybe his German was faulty. But then he learned that half the bar was filled with Kumpfs. My dad always loved a beer, and truth be told, he usually liked more than one. Needless to say, he got to know and enjoy well some of his Beerfelden relatives. While in Germany, my dad also wanted to visit Augsburg, site of the Augsburg Confession, often called the Constitution of the Lutheran Church. And he especially wanted to visit St. Anne's Church, built in 1321, a church in which Martin Luther had often preached. Definitely breaking church rules, my dad opened the gate and climbed up into St. Anne's old high pulpit where Luther had once stood, and started in his powerful voice to speak a German sermon that he still remembered. There were many tourists in the church who stopped their loud talking, thinking that a service was starting. That not being the case, I quickly got my dad down from this historic pulpit before he got in trouble. But how pleased he was to have stood in St. Anne's in the pulpit where Martin Luther had once preached. Another story that I want to share concerns the graduation exercises when I received my terminal degree at The Ohio State University. The program was held in the university's large athletic arena. Candidates were seated in one area, faculty in a special roped-off area, and family and guests in another area. To my horror, and the surprise of every other person in the arena, toward the end of the ceremony, my dad left his seat by my mom and wife, went and climbed over the rope encircling the faculty, worked his way down the rows to find my classics professors to ask them to stay after the ceremony for pictures. All eyes in the arena were focused on him. Today, with all our security concerns, he would probably have been arrested, but fortunately not then, and my dad did get his pictures. Speaking of getting arrested, let me share another story about my dad. He was a pretty fast driver and was pulled over often for speeding. When the officer saw his driver's license, which he regularly signed with Reverend Harold Kumpf, with an emphasis on the word Reverend, he always received just a warning rather than a ticket. However, once, when hightailing it out of Dubuque, he was pulled over and given a speeding ticket. My dad told the officer he was Reverend Kumpf of First Lutheran Church in Maquoketa, and that he had been driving for 40 years and never been ticketed for speeding. The officer replied, "There's a first time for everything, Reverend." My dad later said, "I'm sure that guy was a Catholic." As I said, my dad had spunk and lived his life with abounded joy. The minister he was. Enough then of my stories about my dad as a person. Let me now focus on my dad and his 33 years of service to First Lutheran Church. During these years of ministry, from 1947 to 1980, he happily baptized, happily confirmed, happily married, and sadly buried many members of his congregation. My dad loved to socialize with church members during the monthly meeting of the Couples Club. And he loved it when the First Lutheran men would defeat the team of a Jackson County sister Lutheran church in dartball. Dartball was a big thing years ago. And of course, there were his confirmation classes. Many of you older folks, I am sure, can still remember the phrase, "This is most certainly true." And there were his vacation Bible classes, Luther League meetings, vacation Bible school, and so many, many more Reverend Kumpf church events. Yes, lots of memories for some of you older members. Following the end of the Vietnam War, my dad welcomed and helped provide First Lutheran support for refugees from that war-torn country. He was very proud that several daughters of the church became Lutheran ministers. My dad oversaw 3 building projects: the north side addition of the building, making it a cruciform church, the west side addition with its new front entrance, offices, and classrooms, and the new parsonage, the house that has so many fond memories for me and my siblings. My dad was not always alone in his ministry here at First Lutheran. After a period of time working by himself, he was first assisted on weekends by students from Wartburg Seminary, including for a few years a wonderful student from Africa, and then later by a succession of great team ministers. And he was helped by ever so many lay members. Let me mention a few, and just a few, who stand out in my boyhood, and I emphasize boyhood memory. One a farmer, one a high school teacher, one a housewife, and one a medical doctor. The farmer. Harold Wilms was the longtime superintendent of Sunday schools. He came early every snowy Sunday morning with his tractor to blade off the church parking lot in the parsonage driveway. He took Luther League members on hay rides and hosted winter toboggan parties for them on his farm. Harold was a quiet and unassuming man, but definitely a true servant of the church. The school teacher. Henry Kolb was the longtime teacher of the high school Sunday school class, a most difficult task, as my wife and I can attest. Many years ago, our pastor in Valparaiso, Indiana, asked the two of us if we would team teach the church's high school Sunday school class. We agreed. And to begin with, we had a sizable number of students. But with every following Sunday, the class got smaller and smaller, with the result that after a time, we had just one student left, the pastor's daughter. We realized, and our pastor realized, that not everyone is called to be a high school Sunday school teacher. But Henry was called, and he was able and willing to do the job for many, many years. The housewife, Vera Vertman. I can get emotional when I think of this wonderful woman. The name Vera in Latin means one who is true, and Vera definitely lived up to her name, being always true to her Christian faith. For many years, Vera and her husband Arnie designed, built, and set up the scenery for the Christmas Eve children's service. Vera was the best Sunday school teacher that I had during my boyhood years at First Lutheran. I can still hear her low voice and see her loving eyes as she talked to our class about Jesus and his love for each one of us. And for many years, Vera was the leader of the junior mission band. I still have a wooden cross on a shelf over my desk, which she gave me. It is certainly a memory of the crucifixion, but also of her, a most gracious and humble woman, a true saint of the church, and a woman I will never, never forget. The medical doctor, Dr. John Broman. I can't say enough, and so I won't even start, about this wonderful person, a pillar of the church and a most loyal friend of my dad and our family. These four individuals represent the many, many members who were true servants of the church and partners with my dad in performing the work of First Lutheran. Earlier I said the word that I associate with my dad is the word love. He loved Maquoketa, and he loved being a Rotarian, and was honored to have been elected a Paul Harris Fellow of this international organization. But most importantly, he loved First Lutheran and its members, and he loved calling on them, that is, meeting them in their homes. The word pastor in Latin means shepherd. The word congregation means flock. My dad took seriously the words from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 10, verse 14, "I know my sheep, and they know me." In fact, that was the text he chose for his last sermon as pastor of First Lutheran. My dad wanted to know personally his members, and he wanted them to know him. He was interested in their stories and their lives. In the church's west transept, over the choir loft, is the stained glass picture of Jesus standing at the door, ready to knock. Referencing, I believe, the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 7, verse 7, "Knock and the door will be open." My dad also often stood before the door of a member's house, but he usually forgot about the knocking part and just opened the door, saying in his powerful voice, "Hello." Whether meeting members in their houses in town or on the farm or even in the field, he loved to visit with them, to know them, and let them know he was their pastor. "I know my sheep, and they know me." And of course, if a piece of pie and a cup of coffee accompanied his visit, all the better. Since 1971 to the present, my wife and I have belonged to 3 churches, first in Columbus, Ohio, then in Valparaiso, Indiana, and now in Iowa City. During those 54 years, we have never had a pastor call on us, but we never had my dad as our pastor. That is, a minister who loved calling on and getting to know personally his members. The late Pope Francis liked to be out among his people, often in his Pope-mobile, and has rightly been called a people's pope. My dad liked to be out among his people, and I believe can properly be called a people's pastor. And as I have said, my father loved to tell and repeat old stories. We heard the same stories time and time again. But his favorite story, the most important story of his life, was one that can be summed up in a hymn that we children long ago learned one summer in vacation Bible school. Perhaps you know the song. Let me read its first stanza and refrain. "I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story because I know it's true. It satisfies my longings as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story, 'twill be my theme and glory, to tell the old, old story of Jesus and his love." Yes, that is the story that my dad, as pastor, loved to tell for 33 years to his congregation from the pulpit of First Lutheran Church. The old, old story of Jesus and his love. I began my remarks mentioning the ancient Roman god Janus, who had 2 faces, one looking backward and one looking forward. In celebrating its centennial, First Lutheran has been proudly looking backward over its 100-year history. After the centennial celebration is over, it will be fitting, like the other face of Janus, to look forward. And I am sure that under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, a wonderful future looms for First Lutheran. And now I must admit that what I have shared with you is the biased view of a proud son regarding his dad and his dad's ministry. There has also been a fair share, I am sure, of family vanity. For all of this, I ask your pardon. Once, when my daughters were young, they were praising in the presence of their grandmother the memory of their granddad. My mom, their grandmother, reminded them that their granddad was far from perfect. Yes, my mom was right. My dad was far from perfect. And that, I believe, made him the wonderful man and the pastor he was. Finally, I must mention, and maybe some of you older folks will remember, that my mother, when she noticed that my dad's sermons were getting long, would make sure that he saw her stick up her arm and look at her watch. When my dad saw that, he quickly ended his sermon. I can see my mom now looking at her watch. So it's time to quit. God bless.
Thank you so much. Another hand for Dr. Kumpf. Yeah, and I just got to tell one story for those of you who knew him well. If you ever missed a Sunday service and you saw him anywhere in the neighborhood, you definitely got noticed, because he would tell you, "We look forward to seeing you back next week, aren't we?" So always a great inspiration. And I just want to say thank you to Dr. Kumpf and to the whole Kumpf family for the years that they shared their lives and their mom and dad with us. We were really blessed. We've got some door prizes coming up. Where is Cindy? Okay. Do you have some names for us? Which Bickford? Cindy Bickford. Raise your hand and we'll get them out to you. Okay, right over there. Carol Rask. Carol Rask. There we go, right down here. Connie Kopus? Carly Kopus, over here. Marcella Bermel. Sadie Hamilton. Did you find her? All right. Thank you, Cindy. You know, the great thing about 100 years is the great heritage, the great legacy that we have. We've been very fortunate over the years to have people who are willing to take the time to document that history for us so that we have it in the future. And I'm looking down at the Judy Bickford did it for the 75th anniversary. I know I saw Judy out here, and you know that was wonderful seeing the history and having it told to us. Edna Johnson did similar work in 1954, and Grace Ehlers, the mother of Ann Bowman, did an excellent job organizing the 70 years through 1995. I want to say a special thank you tonight to Glenn Bartelt, who's really gone through and put a great presentation on it. We're going to have a shortened version of that, but if you ever have a meeting or something that you'd like to have him do it to, I know he'd be glad to do it. I'm looking for Glenn out there. I'm volunteering him. But it's a great presentation. We're going to ask Jeremy Bartelt to come up. And Jeremy's, I can't believe this guy's this big. I can't be that old because I remember when he was this tall. So come on up, Jeremy, and he's going to give us a history of First Lutheran Church over the last 100 years.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you. Hello, everyone. I don't live in Maquoketa, so we had to have a lot of discussions about setting this up. I knew that I was going to be accompanied by images on the screen, so take those in as I talk. I did not know I was going to be accompanied by dirt track racing, so we'll bear with that and get through it. So to give a full history of this church would take way too long. I'm not going to put you through that tonight. But there are some really interesting tidbits in that document that Joe talked about that, things like Pastor Kumpf. I didn't know this. He was on a committee that searched out land that ended up being near Strawberry Point that became Camp Iwalu. I'm leaving out so much, like the Ladies' Aid Society is also 100 years old. So many educational ministries that we've had, musical ministries, so much that's going to be left out tonight as I just hit some highlights. So bear with this here as I go through the timeline, because a lot of people would think that I'm going to start in 1925, but that's not actually correct. We start in 1877. St. Marcus, a German congregation here in Maquoketa, had a Lutheran church there at this time. And Joe talked about my age. I'm going to put my readers on now, and we'll go through this and see what's what. So in 1877, St. Marcus was there, and then still active in 1924 when the mission board of the Iowa Synod asked Professor Martin Wiederenders of Wartburg College, Clinton, to organize an English language Lutheran congregation here in Maquoketa. He was successful, and on the evening of March 1st, 1925, this congregation was formally organized under the name First English Lutheran Church. Only a month later, in April, First English proposed consolidation to St. Marcus, with English as the official language of the congregation, but German services to continue exactly as they had been. So St. Marcus agreed, and a month later, in May 1925, English services and Sunday school were then held at the St. Marcus building. Fast forward to May, articles of incorporation, a constitution, all of that was discussed and approved. So finally, on June 7th, 1925, both congregations officially voted at their regular services to accept the resolutions of this meeting. So, there you go. June 7th, this very day, First Lutheran Church came into existence 100 years ago. On June 24th, they held another meeting. All members present signed the Constitution. Elections were held. A resolution was adopted to apply to the Iowa Synod. And the Reverend Eric Biederman was called as the pastor. He served here at First Lutheran from 1925 to 1927. Membership at the time totaled 80 people. We skip ahead now through kind of 11 years. The Reverend E.E. Senst was the pastor, and he was here from 27 until 1933. The Reverend Carl Veltner came after that, 34 to 38. But on February 1st, 1938, Pastor Henry Mueller accepted First Lutheran's call. And soon after that, the Hand Fisher Lumber Yard, probably not that big of a deal to anyone here, but this next point will, at 210 East Platt Street, became available for purchase. That lumber yard had burned there earlier, and so that is now the current site of First Lutheran Church. Pastor Mueller, who had been a builder before becoming a pastor, drew preliminary plans for a new building to be built in 2 phases. The first phase consisted of a rectangular building, which was started in 1938 and dedicated in 1939. That second phase would come later. So that kind of basic rectangle that is the sanctuary now, as I think it's up there, that was in 1939. In 1944, so now we're at the 5th anniversary of the church, all debt was paid, and after 19 years, the mission part of the congregation was terminated. Then we come to, after Reverend Mueller, Pastor Kumpf. He came in July of 1947, and Sunday school and church attendance grew to such an extent that in early fall, double services became necessary. This growth also led to the congregation to decide in December of 1948 to complete that phase 2 of Pastor Mueller's plan, the addition of the transepts, the choir loft and the loft opposite it, the chancel, and a bell tower. So April 4th, 1949, building began. The cornerstone was laid on July 4th, 1949, and that final dedication to that new addition was April 16th of 1950. So now we've reached the 25th anniversary year. In December 1951, I know Pastor Harrison mentioned this today at the music program, the new pipe organ was installed. By the end of 1954, the church rolls listed 485 confirmed and 724 baptized members, a little better than that 80 number I gave you before. With an average church attendance of over 300, those double Sunday services were again needed to accommodate the worshipers. In the mid-1950s, Sunday school space was at a premium, so the congregation purchased the property next door on January 1st, 1958. This is the land between like what's now the alley and where the playground is and so on. Now, a little show of hands, is there any, I've heard some people say there was a house and 6 cabins that sat on that property. Do people remember the house and the 6 cabins? Okay. So they actually kept those buildings and had Sunday school in those buildings, in the house and in the cabins. But that only lasted a few years, and in '64, those buildings were demolished and the new educational wing was constructed in their place. So this expanded the narthex in the south end of the rectangle, as I've been calling it, with the balcony where the organ sits today, and then that wing running west along Platt Street where the mailboxes are now, and then that north L-shape building, creating a courtyard between the old worship area and this new addition. Also in 1968, a memorial donation started the search for a church bell. A 1,200-pound bell was located in a closed church near Waukon, Iowa. Pastor Michael Shearer was called to the new associate ministry at the church in 1970. He left in 1974, accepting a call elsewhere, and Wilson Sabia from Nigeria served as interim pastor until the congregation called Pastor Robert Baer in July to join Pastor Kumpf. In 1974, Thanksgiving evening and Christmas Eve services began, and with Christmas morning services concluding then. For those who have wondered about that garage that sits in our parking lot, in March 1976, Gertrude Mudd, who was a member, donated the west half of her residence to First Lutheran for use as parking, provided that the congregation build her a one-car garage on the remainder of her lot. Now, there's a lot of history I'm not going to get into about the parking lot. A lot of real estate purchases and a lot of history in the parking lot. But this, I figured, with that garage, which we now use as storage, would maybe be interesting to some people. 1975 rolled along, and now we were celebrating the church's 50th anniversary. An anniversary float appeared in parades, an anniversary plate was designed, and over 700 people attended a banquet at Pearson Memorial Center. That was in October. I don't know if there was dirt track racing. When Pastor Baer left in 1976, Pastor William Palmquist accepted a call to join Pastor Kumpf. When Pastor Kumpf retired in 1980 after 33 years in Maquoketa, Pastor Gerald Jurdy began his team ministry with Pastor Palmquist in January of 1981. By this time, membership had grown to 950 confirmed and 1,345 baptized members. I should note the weekly radio broadcasts, sponsored by families in the congregation, began in 1979. Little Shepherd Christian Preschool, a flagship ministry of this congregation, opened on August 29, 1983, in the lower level of First Lutheran Church, where it has been located ever since. It's been there for 4 decades. We have been blessed with Little Shepherd's dedicated staff over the years and their ministry to their students. Following Pastor Palmquist's departure in 1985, Pastor Richard Camper was called to serve with Pastor Jurdy. Also, a new youth choir for students in grades 5 through 8 began during these years. I'm the boy that's not called Ryan in that picture. That was directed by my mom, and contemporary worship services began experimentally in 1989. In 1990, the worship area was redecorated and rededicated. Several rows of pews were removed, and the altar was relocated from the chancel to the front of the worship area, positioned between the transepts with the altar rail extended around it on 3 sides, basically how it is now. In 1992, Pastor Camper retired, and Pastor Paul Fredrickson accepted a call to serve as associate pastor. His pastorate began in December 1993, and he brought his considerable musical talents to First Lutheran. In early 1994, under the leadership of Pastor Fredrickson, weekly celebration services began with the celebration singers and instrumentalists. Pastor Fredrickson unfortunately died suddenly in April of 1994, and members received word of Pastor Camper's death in October of that year. A grieving church began the search for a new pastor. In 1995, Pastor Pamela Schrader was called as associate pastor and served alongside Pastor Jurdy until 2005. A 75th anniversary task force organized events for the year 2000. Special activities included a music weekend with Wartburg's Castle Singers and Jazz Band, a church picnic and polka service, and a final banquet and worship service. Groundbreaking for a new addition to improve the north entrance, give more space for offices and support staff, room for Little Shepherd, and meeting areas for youth groups took place in May of 2002, with construction completed in the summer of 2003, and on August 24, 2003, an open house and dedication was held. This established the present footprint of the current church building. In 2004, the congregation purchased the former, here's Gertrude again, Gertrude Mudd House, rented it for about 10 years, demolished the house in 2015, and expanded the parking lot to its now current size. In July of 2005, Pastor Pam Schrader moved to Des Moines, and Pastor Eric Elkins and Ginger Anderson Larson assisted with services until a call was extended to Pastor Judy Heinrich in November of 2006. In May 2010, First Lutheran received the Dr. Richard Lee Peterman Good Steward Award of the ELCA. This is a nationwide award given to Lutherans who exemplify excellent steward leadership. The year 2011 began with saying farewell to Pastor Jurdy upon his retirement after his 30 years of faithful ministry here, his second only in length to Pastor Kump's 33 years. We welcomed Pastor Carl Engstrom on March 1st as interim lead pastor, continuing in partnership with Pastor Heinrich. The year 2012 featured the end of Pastor Engstrom's interim pastoral leadership in the spring and the beginning of Pastor Eric Swanson's pastorate in the summer. The congregation said farewell then to Pastor Swanson in 2016, and in 2018 we welcomed Pastor Neil Harrison to partner with Pastor Heinrich in ordained ministry. 2020 brought COVID-19, and in-person worship ended in mid-March following the governor's order, not resuming until April 2021. However, our worship planning found new ways to bring the gospel to a dispersed congregation through mailings, recorded services, live-streamed worship on our Facebook group page, and eventually brief services of Holy Communion for small groups of worshipers in the sanctuary. Following a sound system improvement in 2020, the congregation approved a project for cameras and monitors in the worship area and social room to facilitate YouTube streaming of services, replacing the previous streaming on the Facebook page. Also at this time, retired pastors and First Lutheran members Ginger Anderson Larson and Keith Larson partnered with Pastor Harrison in worship leadership, preaching, teaching, and visitation ministry. The green flag has dropped. In 2024, we launched our centennial celebration year on the weekend of June 8th and 9th with a 99th anniversary celebration weekend with special guests, the Reverend Michael and Kathy Shearer. 2024 also included celebrations of the 66th ordination anniversary of Reverend Emmett Bush, the first son of the congregation to complete seminary training and enter ordained ministry, the half-century celebration of Jack Jones' ministry as our organist, and then multiple weekends where all former pastors and sons and daughters of the congregation came home to preach. The Reverend Karen Rask Bailing returned in September 2024. Her mother, Carol Rask, and her husband, Deacon David Bailing, helped us celebrate then. Pastors Barb Jones, Pam Schrader, and Judy Heinrich were here on different weekends in the spring of this year. And last but not least, the church has had a crucial exterior project completed just in time for the celebration this weekend. So that brings us up to date in 2025. Again, this is just an overview of what the 3+ generations here at First Lutheran have done to best serve God out of their deep respect, reverence, faith, and trust. God does not call us to have success. God calls us only to love others and to be of service to each other. We are called to faithful labor in the vineyards, but the harvest is up to God. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for that overview of the last 100 years. And also thank you to you and your family for being such a steadfast input and just such a great part of this community of followers. We're going to do a couple door prizes, so I'm going to get Cindy ready. You want to do that? Okay, you're gonna have to yell over stock cars, you know. Becky Benedict's. Well, how about, is that rigged? Over here. Deanna Moorhead. Okay. If you missed it, we'll get it in a little bit. Yeah, okay, let's move on. Bethany Becker. You see her? Betty Thompson? Who? Betty Paulson. Sorry about that. Levon Steigerwald. Where are they at? I saw them out there. Okay. Okay. What? Deanna Morgan? Moorhead. Deanna Moorhead. Okay, she's got it. Great. Thank you so much, Cindy. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. One thing I did forget, we're kind of blessed here tonight. I'm standing up here as the 100th, but we've got a couple other past presidents I really want to recognize. The president for the 50th anniversary that year was Roger Wilms. You see him running around a little bit. I think he got something to do with it this year, too, I think. And for the 75th, I saw him out here, Kevin Rockwell. And we thank them both for their time they served. You know, it's not just about being a minister to our own members. It's being that outreach that is so important to a church. And that's reaching out into the communities. And we've been blessed to have Maquoketa that we've been able to partner with so many different businesses, people, other churches. And we've been really blessed all the way through with that. We asked a very well-known community leader to come and say a few words tonight, and he gratefully accepted. And I'm going to ask Jack to start coming on up. I think we all know Jack Willie in many different ways. He's not a member of First Lutheran. He's a member of the Catholic Church, but we're okay with that. But, you know, he is such a steadfast part of this community, and when we think of that with our church here, and very trustworthy. He's been a business owner in this community for a long time before he retired, and a long-time supervisor. And I can say personally, he's always been great to work with. We asked him to say a few words tonight.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to congratulate First Lutheran for their 100 years in business in Jackson County and in Maquoketa. I had lots of friends that were Lutheran, and I sang at some funerals, and I sang at some weddings here, and always had a great accompanist in Jack Jones. Reverend Neil Harrison called me, and he said, Jack, I'd like to talk to you. Could we get together? And I thought, okay. And I says, when do you want to do that? And he says, well, could we do it sometime today? And I said, well, I think I can probably do it this afternoon if that's okay. And he said, that'll be fine. What time? And I said, oh, somewhere between 1:15 and 1:30. He said, that'll be fine. So I got down to First Lutheran, and I came in the back door. I had to buzz, and he came and let me in, and he went into his secretary, and he says, I'm taking Jack down the hall. So we ended up going into his office, nice comfortable chairs and couch, and we sat there, and I thought, okay, what's this all about? And then he said, Jack, you know we're having our 100th anniversary for our church. And I said, yes, I've heard bits and pieces about that. And he said, we'd like to add something different this year. We'd like to have some community input from somebody in the community, a community leader. And I looked at him and I thought, community leader, me? And I said, well, I guess I did serve on the Board of Supervisors for 32 years. So maybe I have some input that I could share. And so we talked about it. And then during the course of the conversation, he asked me about what committees and what service I did besides the Board of Supervisors. And I think he knew quite a few of them already because he hinted about several. But my biggest concern and my biggest desire was to improve mental health services. And so for the past 35 years, I have been working on mental health services. as a member of the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Governing Board. I'm also serving on the Iowa Health and Human Service Council, which is an appointment by the governor, and I've been on that for the last 5 years. We meet every other month, and we meet in Des Moines, and it's been very enlightening, shall we say. My biggest concern in mental health right now is in their, I'm not going to say wisdom, I'm going to say their lack of wisdom. The legislators have made some huge changes, which will take effect July 1st of this year. We started, our region was 5 counties: Jackson, Clinton, Muscatine, Cedar, and Scott. We had a population of approximately 300 to 350,000 people. Our new region is 14 counties and has a population of 1.3 million. It includes the city of Dubuque, the city of Waterloo, the city of Cedar Rapids, the city of Iowa City, the city of Clinton and Muscatine, Davenport, and Jackson County, Maquoketa. So we have a huge, huge area that they are throwing us together, and none of the current board members that have been serving on the commission is able to serve on the new. They set separate guidelines. I represented Jackson County. I was no longer on the Jackson County Board of Supervisors, but my colleagues that I had worked with, they wanted me to represent them because they weren't so interested in it, and I was. And so I continued to serve, but after July 1st, I will not be serving on that, and I'm not sure who will be. You have to be an elected official, you have to be a consumer of services, you have to be a provider of service. They've established the guideline for appointments. So all I can say is the one good thing that's come of this through my work with the mental health is that the Jackson County current Board of Supervisors did appropriate funds to hire our coordinator of services that we've had for the last several years to continue in her position. So Lene will become an employee of the county. So if people have problems, or if they need services, or if they need information, they can get that information. Her office is in the old Penrose house behind the old jail and the police station. So she will be there to provide those services. Now I got to look at my notes. Along the way, there are several other boards that I have served on. Early Childhood Iowa, which is also changing. Roberta Rosheim serves on that committee with me. It was Clinton Jackson, Early Childhood Iowa. Now, it's the same 14 counties as the mental health region. So it's a huge change. We were able to do lots of wonderful services for the people in Jackson County and for the children that are trying to learn to be able to go to school. And so it's been quite an undertaking, and we were afraid for a while that our coordinator, Mary Worth, was going to lose her job, but now she will have it at least till July of 26. But I guess the thing I'm most concerned about and the most confused about, and I brought it up last week at our Iowa Health and Human Service Council meeting, is why isn't the council more involved with why and how these decisions are made? And I guess that's not the way the legislators do it. And we're the ones that are the closest to the people that need the services. And my main reason for getting involved in human services and in mental health was I had a brother that committed suicide, and I wanted to make sure that people would be getting services that they really needed. And back in those days, it was shock treatments and lock you in your room, and that's not how it needs to be. They need to be cared, and they need to be loved, and they need to be served, and that wasn't happening. One of the other things I talked about to myself is I also want to thank Pastor Harrison for his work with people that are in need. I know that your work with the community cupboard is very important to you. I've seen you at those when we've had open houses, and you're always there and you're always encouraging, and you want to help people who have limited resources, and that's a wonderful thing for you to do, to support them as well. I guess that really pretty much does it, except good luck for the next 100 years. It starts tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's been great working with you, not just as a friend, you and I, but also with the congregation. I know we've been able to have a lot of great partnerships over the years with First Lutheran, Sacred Heart, and all those other community leaders that take the time to listen to us. So we really appreciate that. We have some more door prizes. Cindy. I couldn't hear you. You got to be louder than these stock cars. Come on. I know you got it in you. I know. She said that's the only when she's talking to me. And I would say it sounds like with Shelley, but I won't get a ride home tonight. So.
Okay. Dylan Tracy. Raise your hand if you're here. He's over there, Lisa. Heidi Hotvet. Austin DeMoss.
Right down the middle again.
Gloria Jorgensen. She'll bring it right over to you. Carol Cornelius.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Harrison for our next special guest.
We have a number of special guests that have joined us for our celebration this weekend. You already met Dr. Karen Black, and we celebrated her. We have a number of colleagues here from the ministerium, and we're grateful that Father Bob and Karen North are with us today from St. Mark's Episcopal Church. Our colleague, Pastor Will Layton, the pastor of the Trinity Lutheran Parish in Jackson County, St. John, St. Donatus, St. Paul's, Lamont, and Salem Andrew is here as well. We're grateful that you're here. And the Reverend Harold Kumpf family, special guests, of course, Bob and Juan Moore, Mike and Sigrid Kumpf, Kirsten Kumpf Bailey, Jerome Bale, Frida Bale, and Torben Bale, and Heike Kumpf, as well as Carolyn Hulson, Cookie, the Kumpf family. We have with us today one of those student pastors that Jeremy was talking about that served here during, I believe it was Pastor Kumpf's time, 60 years ago in 1965, I believe, Pastor Dwayne and Grace Gamrath. Right back. And the second pastor of the congregation who's been with us several times during this year, Pastor Michael and Kathy Shearer, are with us again. We're very, very grateful that Shirley Campbell Reentz is here. She, one of the principal missional ministries of this congregation for decades, was supporting missionaries, and her husband, the Reverend Dr. Jack Reentz, and Shirley Campbell Reentz served numbers of years. We supported them as they served in Papua New Guinea. Shirley, where are you? There you are, right there. Welcome. and the wife of Pastor Richard Camper. Edna Camper is with us. We're grateful, and her daughter Candace as well. Where are you at, Edna? There you are, right back there. Thanks for being here. Pastor Pam Schrader's here, right over here, and her daughter, that's good. And Sharon Reddick was going to be here, and unfortunately, Sharon and her husband Daryl, they became ill this last week, and they wanted to send their greetings, and they're sorry that they can't be with us. Sharon was our organist for about 15 years prior to the half-century tenure of Jack. And then finally, Pastor Robert Bear very much wanted to be with us, and he sends his greetings. He says, certainly this is a momentous occasion in the life of the congregation, is worthy of celebration. Due to distance and especially his personal health issues, he can't be with us. We'll publish some of this in the Ambassador, and he says, we wish you a joyful celebration and a continuation of the great work we're called to continue, spreading the good news of Christ Jesus. Our next speaker is the Reverend Amy Current. The Reverend Amy Current is a pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and has served as Southeastern Iowa Synod in the Office of the Bishop since 2020. She's a graduate of Concordia College, Moorhead, Minnesota, and Wartburg Theological Seminary. Prior to her role as bishop, she served as Vice President for Admissions and Student Services at our Wartburg Theological Seminary in Dubuque. She was born and raised in North Dakota, and she served 3 North Dakota congregations prior to her call with Wartburg Seminary. Bishop Current currently serves on the boards of Grandview University, Lutheran Services in Iowa, and Wartburg College. The bishop is married to the Reverend Dr. Samuel Geary, who serves as the professor of biblical interpretation at our Wartburg Theological Seminary. They have 2 children, Isaac and Shona Current. Geary, the family has a miniature Australian Shepherd Otis. Bishop Current enjoys reading novels, kayaking, snowshoeing, walking, sharing meals, lingering in conversation, watching TV, and exploring through travel. We're grateful that Bishop Current is with us for all of our Centennial Weekend celebration activities and events. Bishop Amy Current.
Good evening, beloved ones of First Lutheran Church and guests and neighbors. It's been lovely to be with you already today. That program this afternoon was simply magnificent. Thank you for all of the musicians. It's good for us to gather. We are celebrating 100 years of ministry and counting. We are connecting as family and friends and neighbors. We're reuniting with loved ones and former members. We're listening to history and sharing memories. We're marveling at the gift of music and feasting together in thanksgiving. And most of all, giving thanks to God for God's saving grace through Jesus Christ by the power of the Spirit, which unites us all. I give thanks to God for Pastor Wiederanders, now 100 years ago, and for all the faithful ones who have centered their lives on God's promise every day since. As your bishop, I am a partner in this mission that we share. And what mission is that, you say? Well, to share the love of God through Jesus Christ, together with all Christians throughout the world. We are sent by the Holy Spirit to share God's love. Not to earn God's favor, but so that all may know that God already loves us. So I greet you today on behalf of the 132 other worshiping communities in the Southeastern Iowa Synod. And I greet you all on behalf of Presiding Bishop Elizabeth Eaton and the whole of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, because together we share the good news of God. I give thanks for your generosity. I give thanks for your spirit of love. As I read through your history, your newsletters, y'all are generous. You are generous with your time, with your creativity, with your elbow grease, and with your dollars. Thank you for nurturing children in the faith. Thank you for providing comfort to families who grieve. Thank you for supporting your local community and many organizations. Thank you for supporting and continuing to send people to Camp Iwalu. Thank you for lifting up, inviting, and encouraging and sending seminarians that are now servants, pastors, and deacons in our church. Thank you for sharing donations with Lutheran Disaster Response, ELCA World Hunger, and Lutheran World Relief on the regular. Thank you for supporting your congregation staff and pastors through all of these years. And I want to take a moment right now to thank those that are serving now, for the current staff of First Lutheran Church, and particularly for Pastor Ginger Anderson Larson, Pastor Keith Larson, who I know is choosing to step away a little bit, but still head usher, for all the staff, and particularly for Pastor Harrison and your faithful leadership as pastor right now. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to First Lutheran, for all of you, for your generous support with the Southeastern Iowa Synod, where we together, with all of your generosity, together with all the 132 congregations, we together provide 64% of the gifts that come to Southeastern Iowa Synod to partner ministries. 50% goes to the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and 14% goes to our seminaries, our campus ministries, and Lutheran services in Iowa. Together, we make a difference in Iowa and throughout the entire world. So thank you. And thank you for celebrating 100 years of ministry. Thank you for taking a moment to consider, to remember. And now, as other speakers before me, I invite you to pivot. How is God calling you to continue? Here is what I know as your bishop. Your congregation is called to worship. You are called to continue to hear the word of God proclaimed. You are called to continue to baptize, to gather at the communion table, to teach the Bible, to care for one another and for all of those in need, and together to work for justice and peace in all the worlds. So I pray for you that you will continue to share the good news of Jesus in word and deed as the Spirit sends you forth for the next 100 years. You've got this. God has you. Thanks be to God.
Thank you so much, Bishop Current. And thank you for taking the time to spend the entire weekend with us. That's great. She was here today, and she will be here tomorrow morning for worship. So by all means, if you see her, be sure to come up and say hi. She's a terrific person to visit with. We've got some more door prizes. Cindy, I'm going to have you just come on up because we're going to be ready for you on the next one. You can holler her name to me so we can get going. Thelma Nissen. Is she still here? Okay, come on up, Cindy. And then if Roger wants to come up too. Arlene Bramer.
Arlene. Marcella Burmal. Oh, I already drew her. Sorry. Put it in the wrong box. Judy Bickford. Dick Oster. Dolores Erickson. Is Arlene Bramer here? Okay, there'll be another round soon.
It's all yours. I'll reintroduce Cindy.
Roger and I would like to say just a few words regarding Jack Jones, a person who's been an organist in our congregation for 50 plus years. Started when he was in junior high, playing part-time, and then after graduation, he became our organist. John Richard Jones is the son of the late John R. Jones and Ruth Christensen Jones, and the brother of the Reverend Barbara Jones. He was baptized, confirmed, and has been a long member of First Lutheran Church. He recently retired from the Voice Theaters after working as general manager for 47 years. In his youth, Jack took piano lessons. He and Barb studied organ with Eileen Bush in Bellevue. Jack's leadership as a church musician began in high school when he and his sister played the organ once a month. When our long-term church organist Sharon Reddick moved out of the community, Jack became the principal church organist for over half a century. We held a centennial celebration for Jack last July at the church, celebrating his 50th anniversary. During that event, he was given season's tickets to the Adler Theater, which is one of Jack's love. And the second love for Jack is to visit London on a yearly basis. The congregation's leadership planned the culmination of our centennial celebration year of Jack during this event with the presentation of a special gift. Thanks be to God for the church musician ministry of Jack Jones for over half a century.
We especially grateful to celebrate the ministry of our church organist during the centennial celebration.
Okay, do we have a picture on the screen of what Jack's? Okay. Jack's music is here and there and on the organ and on the floor in the choir loft or in the bell choir loft. So we commissioned someone to build him a cabinet to put his music in and hopefully keep it organized. The wood was donated by the Atkin family from their wood forestry company, and my son-in-law, Randy Schultz, built that cabinet for Jack to store his music in. We'll probably need 12 people to carry it up the steps. But this cabinet is for you, Jack, for all the years that you have given us. If the time comes when you're no longer going to play for us, we can possibly move it to your home. I'm not going to move it. So, Jack, enjoy your cabinet. Store it as well as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack, will you please stand up so we can recognize you? Oh, come on. I know you can do it. Thank you so much. And thanks for those over 50 years of filling the sanctuary with music and song. We really have appreciated it over the years singing with your music. You know, there were two ministers that served over 30 years. We've talked a lot about Pastor Kumpf, his style, the very outgoing, the strong, the hello, and walking into people's houses. The next one had a little different personality. He came after Pastor Kumpf, Pastor Jerry Jurdy. I'll have you start coming up. I got to work with Pastor Jerry a lot over the years. Those of us who knew him, you want to talk about a servant leader. That's what we had here. And he did a great job of leading us through many challenges, many opportunities over the years. And we're very blessed to have him, and very blessed to have him tonight. So look forward to hearing from him. Welcome, Jerry.
make sure this mic is at the right height. No, that's all right. That's right. Well, it's hard to imagine that it's been 14 and a half years since that day in January of 2011 when I retired from 30 years of serving as one of your pastors. A lot has happened since then. Mary and I have been living in Fort Collins, Colorado for 13 and a half years, and this August we will celebrate 22 years of marriage. Today our son Ryan is here, and he and his wife Jenna have 3 children. Tommy is 13, and the twins Harry and Teddy are 10. And Ryan has a position at the library in Luther College and has been there for 24 years. 24 years. I'm never quite sure what he does, but I'll say he's the director of the library. Daughter Jill and her husband Justin have 2 children, Graydon, who is 6, and Hazel, who is 4. They live in Eagle River, Alaska, and Jill is a clinical psychologist in the VA in Anchorage, which for the last 4.5 months has been interesting. We have 2 daughters who live in Colorado, Katie and her husband Adam, and their 3 children, Elida, who is 13, Ryland, who is 10, and Wynn, who is 8, and they live in Fort Collins. Katie is a counselor at an alternative high school in Fort Collins. Sarah and her daughter Matike live in Denver, and TK just graduated from high school and this fall will attend the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. And Sarah is a teacher at South High School in Denver. 4 kids, 9 grandchildren. Life is good. 45 years ago, I sat on the back porch of John and Non Broman's home and met with the call committee of First Lutheran Church. I had served for 3.5 years at Calvary Lutheran in Sebula, and First and Calvary were in the same cluster together, Jackson County cluster of congregations. So I knew Pastor Kumpf was retiring, and I knew some things about First, and I was sort of interested in that. And somehow, I don't remember how it happened, but somehow my name was submitted to the call committee at First Lutheran. And after an interview, I received the call. But later, I found out that I was the second choice. Almost every day I was at First, I gave thanks that the other pastor turned down that call. First Lutheran was a special place for me. In my first few years at First, I learned some valuable lessons. I learned the value and importance of following up with families who had lost a loved one. So I had this system. Some people thought I did this all by mind, but I had a sheet of paper for each month of the year. And anytime there was a death, I would write that person's family down on that sheet of paper. Well, as the years went on, each year I would contact that family as an anniversary of their death unless something had changed in that family setting. It didn't seem appropriate to go visit them if they'd been remarried or, didn't want to remind them of the past. But that's something I thought was very important. I learned the value and importance of making contacts with those who are homebound and offering the sacrament with them. I learned the value and the importance of making sure we went to the hospital. Someone from the staff went to the hospital each day to see who was there. And in those early days, the church directory was very important because I didn't know very many people. But years later, I could see a name and I might be able to tell you who their first cousin was. Well, in the mid-'80s, when Pastor Camper came to First, we spent some time working through how we wanted to do ministry together. And our theme was one ministry, 2 pastors. We were co-pastors. We alternated weddings and funerals with no choice. Well, once in a while we bent that rule, but that was when I was there, we were two pastors with one ministry. So the other pastor, we were a team together. And we equally shared the weekend preaching schedule. And later that became the pattern with Pastor Fredrickson and Pastor Schrader and Pastor Heinrich. And after Pastor Camper retired, the call committee and I decided to continue that co-pastor model. But at that time, people weren't responding to that model. And after all, I'd been there a number of years, and I think they thought, well, how can I go work with this person who's been there forever? And it won't be co. So that's when I was designated at that time as the senior pastor, or now the lead pastor. But I always hoped that title didn't get in the way of how I related to Paul and to Pam and to Judy. As a senior pastor, I continued to be responsible for the high school youth ministry, and those were absolutely fun times, teaching high school, Sunday school, working with a committee to initiate the Wednesday evening supper at 6 program, attending, get this, 7 national youth gatherings. And I had an advantage of leading those high school youth through the Dallas or San Antonio because I could just stand up and walk down the street and they would see me going, and they followed me. They followed me. Well, since Pam had started summer mission trips with middle schoolers, when those students got to high school, I went with on them on their mission trips. And one time I made a very silly mistake. I'm really sorry, parents, about those swords in Chicago. I don't know. Those parents, are there swords still around the house? I'm really sorry about it. Are they? Oh, well, I tell you, it was a bad choice on my part, Well, when we began to share staff with Camp Shalom for our high school youth director, I transitioned over to adult education. And I enjoyed the give and take of doing Bible studies and tackling difficult issues of faith and life. And those experiences energized me because I was energized because of you. As I thought about the celebration of 100 years of congregational history here at First, 2 words came to mind: receiving and sharing. And back in the mid-late 90s, I was at an interview for another call, and that night I was still trying to figure out what we're going to do back at First, so obviously I wasn't very serious about accepting that new call. But I was thinking about a catchy one-sentence description of the mission statement that was being developed. And what I focused on was the word first. I sat there for a long time thinking about that, and what I came up with, first. Faithful and receiving and sharing, and then I got to the T. What am I going to do with the T? The Lord. That catchy phrase wasn't simply a mission statement. It's descriptive of who the people of this congregation are. In water and word, in bread and wine, you faithfully receive God's gift of love. That's what happened 100 years ago. That's what happens today. It will happen tomorrow. It's what identifies you as people of God, the church. Words are important. So I get a little pet peeve of mine is, you don't take communion. We receive it. We don't take it. It's not up to us. We receive it as a gift. One has a closed fist, when you take something. The other is done with an open hand. The closed fist keeps things to ourselves. The open hand shares. For 100 years, this congregation has been in conversation with the Word, that message of God's love, listening to it, reading it, seeing how it is shown to us in the life of Jesus. And all with open ears and open hearts and open hands, making it possible to share the gift of God's love. Well, 14 years ago, when I retired, I opened my hand to receive something new. For me, this is just for me, the days of being a pastor and doing pastor things was done. I chose not to go back to that which identified me for 33 and a half years. So Neil, here it is, no more sermons, you know. There was someone in this crowd who really worked hard to have me change my mind about that. So tonight I'm here to say to you, I'm not going to make any promises, but just maybe I'll preach at the 125th anniversary. By that time, I won't remember that I made that promise. With an open hand, I also let go of personal relationships given to me as a gift of being the pastor, your pastor. That was not easy. But I didn't want to get in the way of what new pastors might receive from this wonderful congregation. And in doing that, what I discovered is when life is lived with an open hand, we're able to let some things go, but there is also so much we bring with us. Tonight I bring with me Harold and Eleanor Kumpf, who supported this very young pastor and never once said to me, well, you know, that's not the way we did things. Never once did I ever hear Harold and Eleanor say that to me. Although for about the first 15 years, when there was something I thought was important for us to do of a congregation like benevolence and mission support, I would use the Kumpf card. I would say, well, you know, Pastor Kumpf believed in this too. And it worked. Of all the special memories I have of Harold, there was one October I stopped by to visit he and Eleanor at their home, and he told me that that was the month that he washed windows. He would wash windows, listening on his transistor radio. That's the days when the World Series was in the afternoons, and he would wash the windows. So now when October rolls around and I'm washing windows, do you know who I think of? Harold Kumpf, and so much more. It's interesting, Mike, that you mentioned Harold Wilms, because I bring tonight with me Harold Wilms, who taught me the value and the importance of terracing fields in order to care for the gift of God's creation, the soil. It's a gift to be cared for. I bring Howard and Edna Blankshine, who after home communion, Howard would get up and go out to the kitchen and get 2 Michelobes and some cheese and pretzels. And we would often sit around the TV and watch the Cubs lose another game. Those truly were times of Holy Communion, holy community, sharing life with one another. I bring with me John and Evelyn Fagerlund, who had a vision for the church building all the way from the gathering area to the library and so much more. I bring Bob Thomas, who the day after my wife Judy died, I was out mowing the lawn and I looked up and I saw Bob walking up to just see how I was doing. Bob represents the people of First who were there for me, like Pastor Pam and Brad, who almost every Friday evening in those first months when I was alone invited me over for supper. I bring 4 amazing people who during my 30 years managed the church office. Maria Kramer, Natalie Sheepers, 19 years with Natalie, Pam Eggers, and Beth Fear. They were all a gift to me, and they were a gift to you. I bring Pastor Heinrich. 2008 was a tough year, a really tough year. And as we were putting the budget together, and that was something I really enjoyed doing, was the budget. And because I saw that in every dollar that was offered in that offering was a person. Whether that person was a part of the Southern Iowa Synod, or a person of First Lutheran Church, or a person somewhere around the world, that dollar represented a person that was going to receive a gift and a presence of Christ in that dollar. 2008 was a tough time to put a budget together. But one day when we were sitting in the office, she came up to me and she said, "Jerry, I think this is the time to raise our percentage of mission support to 30% of offering income. This is the time to step out in faith and trust." And we presented the budget to the congregation, and the congregation received that budget and accepted it. That list could go on and on and on. I have 30 years of stories of all those who shared their life and filled me with their love and care. But this is not simply about me. This is our story. It's the story of the relationships we make in this community. It's about those from the past we bring with us today: a Sunday school teacher, a choir director, a pastor, a confirmation guide, a friend, a loved one. We bring them all with us. This has been repeated in another form this evening, but Soren Kierkegaard, a Danish theologian, said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." So that's my hope for us and for you tonight, that in this year of looking back, that you'll take the memories and the blessings of those people from the past with you. And then may you become a story for someone else as you faithfully step into wherever the Spirit of God is leading this congregation, this community, you, the people of First Lutheran Church.
Thank you so much, Pastor Jerry. I'm just going to say one quick story. When you said about that every year you went back, my mom lived to be 95 years old, and that was something, I'm sure there's other people out here think of that too, that those folks looked forward. Pastor Jerry will visit this month, and they looked forward to that, and that was just one of the many ways you reached out and touched our congregation and our families, and we thank you for those years and sharing your life and your family's life within our congregation. We're going to next hear a recording from the Broman Family Singers again. We'll have that.
Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary, First Lutheran. Happy anniversary to you.
I don't think we ever get tired of hearing from them. Next, we have some more door prizes. I'm going to ask Cindy to come up to the mic. I'm also going to ask Roger, and that'll get us into the next area that we're going to be doing too.
Jerry, Pastor Kumpf will be happy the Cubs have been in first place for quite a while. Oh, geez. Well, at least you and I are happy. Okay, Barb Flatness. Darwin Polk. Judy Bickford. Lucinda Schwenker. John Wolter. And Ramona von Sprecken. Yeah.
Okay. As my two cohorts in crime go down to get our next special guest, we have a special presentation. Pastor Emeritus. This has only been given to one pastor in all of our years. That was Pastor Harold Kumpf. We have been so blessed to have a second one that we have unanimously decided to give to. Pastor Jerry, I sent two people down because I knew I'd never get you back up here otherwise. He's always been very humble in what he did over the years, and our congregation, we can't begin to express our gratitude for everything you've done. Yeah. Your sheet?
This one?
Yeah.
We had asked members of the congregation to just write a short memory of what they have found or had fun with Pastor Jerry. Joe and I are going to take turns reading those comments. The first one, for open communication.
For welcoming everyone to the table, the family of God.
For your superb donkey skills on Palm Sunday every year.
I'm going to go back and sit down.
Not yet. We're not done. For being an excellent church tour guide.
For your wonderful ability to connect with our youth, making the scriptures and spirituality relevant to our lives.
For leading our youth through confirmation, suppers at 6, national youth gatherings, mission trips, and washing the feet.
That was done on Monday, Thursday. For preaching the gospel, for being easygoing.
For being good in all aspects of your duties as pastor.
For being a good neighbor.
For being compassionate and caring.
For excellent sermons.
For being a great listener.
For shepherding us through the building project with a fresh vision for the future.
For being present consistently to console and guide members spiritually, especially in difficult times.
For having a calming, focused, and organized approach.
For modeling and witnessing the deep and abiding faith through the hills and valleys of the church of your personal life.
For shepherding our congregation.
For your dedication to empowering youth.
For your thoughtful personalization of monumental life events, baptisms, first communions, confirmations, weddings, and funerals.
For your inclusiveness and outreach to the community.
For your sense of humor in ministry and his ability to bring fun into the church.
For your ability to bring modernity and layperson understanding into the liturgical setting.
For your work and energy with the church's youth.
For carrying the church through turbulent times.
For your relaxed style in making the church accessible to all.
For your pastoral guidance and steadfast Christian ministry.
For your exemplary, faithful stewardship, ministry, leadership.
And for equipping us to be better in faithful in receiving and sharing the Lord.
At every council retreat, we had game time, and Pastor Jerry was bound to be the winner every time.
On the event of our centennial celebration, in great patience for your tenure as our pastor for 30 years, for your century of congregational life, we give you thanks to God for your ministry and celebration, and now forevermore as Pastor Emeritus, First Lutheran Church.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to tell you your duties now, though. You know, nothing comes at anything. No, seriously, this is something we've only bestowed once. We just, it was unanimous with the 100th Anniversary Committee that they wanted to do this. The council approved it unanimously. Just wasn't a question to it for what you have done for our church over the years. You have no actual official duties you have to do, other than speak at the 125th Anniversary celebration. We're expecting a sermon. And other than that, what we're going to do is with our last president emeritus, we'll have a picture of you, and it will be posted within First Lutheran Church to recognize you as a huge contributor to our church. You want to say a few words? I don't know if I should let you.
Well, no. I just want to say that at the 75th anniversary, at that time we had designated Pastor Kumpf as Pastor Emeritus, and sadly he died before the time of gathering together. I had looked so much forward to that time of worship when we would come together, that from his years of 33 and a half years of ministry, and my, at that time, 20 years, we represented almost over 55 years of that 75 years. And I'm just completely humbled to be included with your dad. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for everything you've done. We have some more door prizes. Hey, it's on the script. So, Cindy? Okay, so we need Karen Slattery and Karen Hansen up also. We're going to do for the quilt. This is the last round of door prizes, so we'll have those two come up because they're going to announce the winner for the quilt also.
And I would like to just mention that this quilt was made by Karen Hansen, Karen Slattery, and Flora Fowler. So let's give them a round of applause. Okay, here's the last door prizes. Bonnie Erickson, Patty Allen, Sharon Wichelow, Norma Round, Dwayne Camerath, and Barb Moore.
What's up?
Will this come off? She can't come up.
Oh. I don't know. We'll try it.
There you go.
So I'm going to draw you to take the mic.
Okay. Whoopsie. Forget that one. Hold on a little bit.
And the winner is Linda Bullock.
Great job, lady. Hey, I didn't even break it. Good deal. Thank you so much. And congratulations. It's a beautiful quilt. You might have to buy us a couple Pepsis to help you get it down from there, though, Linda. Again, you got your son here. He could probably reach it. So, at this point in time, I'm going to ask Pastor Harrison to come up with a couple special recognitions.
The The celebration continues, as the president said, with a few recognitions. The first is for Roger Wilms. The 100th Anniversary Celebration Committee, more than a year ago, recommended with the unanimous approval of the Congregation Council that Roger Wilms would be designated and recognized as our 100th Anniversary Honorary Chairman. Roger Harold Wilms, son of the late Harold and Myrtle Wilms, has been a member of the congregation the entire 8 decades of his life. Roger was baptized here on January 1st, 1944, and has been an active member and leader in this congregation in all chapters of his baptismal journey. Roger met Audrey Hill, the daughter of Mike and Bernice Hill, when they were 11 years old after her family moved to Maquoketa in 1954. They dated in high school, and they'll be married 62 years soon. Roger and Audrey are the parents of Cheryl, Jeff, and Amy. They have 5 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. Roger has faithfully served God in God's church throughout his life in this congregation. He's been an usher for decades and served on the property committee. Roger was a confirmation ministry leader and a Luther League leader. Roger and Audrey hosted Luther League events at their home. Roger Wilms has been a faithful disciple of Jesus each and every year of his life to the glory of God. Roger and Audrey and the family are like so many thousands of other members and participants in this community of faith over the years who've served faithfully in this place. Just as Roger's parents, Harold and Myrtle, and Audrey's parents, Mike and Bernice Hill, were very faithful members, Roger and Audrey are pillars of this congregation too. Roger Harold Wilms was the president of the congregation not only during the 50th anniversary, presiding over this meeting 50 years ago, he was also the president of the congregation on the 75th anniversary, and he is now and forevermore recognized as the 100th anniversary celebration honorary chairman. Roger, please stand.
Roger, the rest of the family stand up too, because it's a family effort on all this. So they've been a great part of the family over the years.
Our next recognition is for the late Joe Bullock. The late Larry Joe Bullock is our 100th anniversary celebration honorary co-chairman. Joe Bullock was a person of deep faith. Joe was baptized and confirmed as an adult when he was 20 years old. He was a faithful disciple of Jesus and a pillar servant leader in the church for decades. Although his family of origin attended the Baptist church where he was growing up, he married Linda, and he followed her into this congregation, officially into God's church, when he joined it upon baptism into the life and death and resurrection of Jesus on May 29th, 1966. Joe and Linda are the parents of Joseph Michael and Christine Catherine Loss. They have 5 grandchildren and 1 great-granddaughter. Joe is a well-respected, iconic businessman in this community. Joe was very faithful for more than half a century as a steward, disciple, leader, sharing his time, talents, and treasures generously in this congregation and the world. He served on many and various committees in this community of faith over the years, including multiple call committees for pastors, was president of the congregation for at least 2 terms. He served as the co-chair of our 100th anniversary celebration committee with Cindy Fear until November 2024, and in the month before he joined the church triumphant, when the Congregation Council designated Joe as the honorary 100th anniversary celebration co-chair. Joe and Linda, pillars of this congregation. Our Vice President, Joe Heinrich, now our 100th anniversary president of the congregation, nailed it with precision when he said that a scripture text for Joe's life celebration could certainly be Jesus washing the disciples' feet. Larry Joe Bullock is certainly a personification of that text. Larry Joe Bullock is now and forevermore recognized as our 100th anniversary celebration honorary chair. We would like to have, go ahead.
You're doing good.
Good.
Let's have them stand up.
Yep.
Be recognized.
Let's have Linda and Joseph and Chris stand, and any of the other family that are here. Yep. One second.
Yeah, thanks to both of these people and your families for the service you've done over the years. We just can't, there's not words. You folks have put so much time into it, reaching out, being trusting, always being those welcoming faces, both of these individuals and their families, and we are so blessed to have them within our congregation, and thank you.
Mr. President, did you know that we have another member of our music staff team that has served in our music ministries for more than 1/2 a century? Linda Lubben Polk is the daughter of Arla and the late John Lubin, also very faithful members of this congregation for decades. Linda's been a lifelong member of First Lutheran Church. She was baptized, confirmed, and married in this congregation. She and her husband Darwin, a longtime member and a leader of the congregation as well, are the parents of Tyler and TJ. They have 3 grandchildren. And when Linda was 5 years old, she sat on her grandmother's piano bench. She began her accompanist ministry when she accompanied one of our youth choirs when she was in 7th grade. Linda, a retired Maquoketa Community School District music educator, sang in our choirs as a child, youth, and often as an adult. However, most of the time not, as she's been the chancel choir accompanist for decades. Linda has also served as our bell choir director for 18 years, from 2000 to 2018. And on the occasion of our 100th anniversary celebration in Mission and Ministry, we recognize Linda Lubin Polk for more than 5 decades of service to the glory of God in this community of faith as a church musician.
Okay, we're asking Linda, where are you? Shelley's looking for you. We're going to ask Linda to come up for a special presentation. As she comes up, we can all think of all the beautiful tones that have been in our church over the years. Keeping up with my sister on those beautiful duets, and just absolutely beautiful ministry.
On behalf of everyone at First Lutheran who has enjoyed working with you, listening to you play, and being part of our musical family, we present you this gift. You have to open it. She has to open it. It's there. It's a diamond, and it's called Share Hope. I'm going to read the card to them. Okay? It's a diamond necklace, and it's called the Star of Hope. Designed as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope shines brightly. Worn close to the heart, a touchstone of love and strength, a beacon to lean on when we feel helplessness or lost. Hope is a force that connects us all. Hope is powerful. Hope is love. A portion of this purchase goes to the American Cancer Society.
Okay. Are you doing that or am I? Okay. Yes, sir.
We have been lucky. We've had very good pastors the 60 years I've been here, and we also have 3 very good ones now. We're so lucky, very lucky. Thank you.
I would agree. Thank you for those 3 pastors that are serving us now, Pastor Anil, Pastor Ginger, and Pastor Keith. If you're out there, why don't you stand up? We appreciate everything you're doing for us. Okay, I think you guys are going to pop some names up on the board for the 100th Anniversary Committee. These people have done an extraordinary amount of work getting this whole celebration throughout the whole year, actually, set They might all be breathing a sigh of relief as we go into our 101st and pass it to the next ones. But I'd like all this committee to stand up. We need to give them a big round of applause for everything they've done. And thank you so much for taking the time to help make this a wonderful celebration year for our church. I think I'll turn it over to the pastor.
Well, we were going to move on to the benediction now, but Mr. President, I think we have just one more final recognition, don't we? Yeah, very good. We want to recognize Cindy Moore-Fear for her outstanding, excellent, brilliant ministry as our 100th anniversary chair. We want her to come on up here now for the presentation of a gift and a heartfelt expression of our appreciation.
And you thought you knew everything that was going on. I'll tell you, this would not have happened if it wasn't for Cindy. She took over when Joe got sick, and she took it over. And she went through it. I honestly think her mailing address is probably the office at First Lutheran Church. She was in there all the time. It just came together, and she made it look pretty easy when it was all done. But boy, her and her committee worked great. We can't express enough appreciation. What we will try to do is give her a token of our appreciation. We figure now that you're done with your term, we had a couple bottles of wine for you to kick back and relax with. And figure you're going to need something to read, so we got you a Barnes & Noble gift certificate. And if you don't feel like cooking for that guy down in the front row, we've got a couple certificates for Megas and Texas Roadhouse. So I hope you enjoy. If you don't use Texas Roadhouse and Megas, we'll take it. So, do you want to say anything? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all very much, but I did have some really good help. And it's been actually a year and a half that we started, but we did get a lot accomplished, and I will guarantee I won't be at the next one.
I'm going to do just a couple housekeeping notes. We're going to do the benediction pretty quick here. I'll just hold this. First of all, thanks for coming out and spending a long evening with us, but we only do this about every 25 years. So hope you all enjoyed it. Have a safe drive home. There's just a couple things. We have fellowship still going on, so if you want to go out and visit some more, the bar is open, and we'll be over there visiting also. And if we could get one favor, I'm going to ask for some of the guys to go get the chair racks out, and if everybody was so inclined, if you wanted to grab your chair, just bring it over and throw it on a rack. We've got to clean this up yet tonight, so anybody that would want to help with that for a few minutes would be greatly appreciated. So have a great evening, and thank you for coming out.
Well, we have a great finale in a doxology benediction from the Roman family singers. So first, Almighty God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, bless us now and forever. Amen.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. And give you peace. And give you peace. And give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. And be gracious.
us go in peace and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.